I think that policy plus private capital and having the right partnerships, public, private, and philanthropic, plus an awareness of what needs to be done, all of that is the only way we solve for this issue.
I'm Carolyn Pars, communicator, coach, and host of Just Power, a podcast about creating a clean energy future without leaving anyone behind. Join me as we explore the technologies, policies, and human stories that can make clean energy not just sustainable for our planet, but accessible for everyone. What if one of the biggest barriers to energy affordability isn't the price of electricity, but instead 3 numbers, your credit score, that actually has nothing to do with whether you can pay your bill or not? That is the reality of millions of working families across America, and today's guest has spent more than a decade building a financial workaround to that broken system. Welcome to Just Power and our series, Leading Through Energy Affordability, where I ask one central question, and others, but one central question, that is, what do credible responses to this moment in energy affordability actually look like? And today, we're talking to someone who's answering that question not with policy or research, but with capital for the families that need it most. Duanne Andrade is the CEO of Solar and Energy Loan Fund, otherwise known as SELF, and they're a green bank and a community development financial institution based in Fort Pierce, Florida. SELF makes small, unsecured loans for energy upgrades, fortified roofs, climate resilience improvements to homeowners that conventional lenders have turned away. And guess what? They've proven it works in over 13 states. So welcome, Duanne, to Just Power.
Well, thank you very much, Carolyn. It's really an honor to be here on your show with you and talking about this issue of affordability and capital and access to capital is really one of my personal passions, but also it's really what we're tackling at SELF. So you briefly touched on one of our most successful programs and also our flagship programs, the program that we've been operating for the past 13 years now, which is offering unsecured loans to low and moderate income households that otherwise may be denied by traditional banks or the traditional financing system due to those 3 numbers that you mentioned and other barriers that are systemic. So really what we have been doing for the past 13 years is kind of challenging the paradigms of the financial system and putting it on its head and saying, well, let's do things differently to break those barriers down and prove that it works.
Wow, that's amazing and so needed right now. You've been doing this for a while, not just like this affordability situation, crisis, change, energy transition that is happening right now, but you've been at it for a while. So let's just walk me through what the arc of a family that may come to SELF, right? Where are they starting? What does that intervention look like? Where do they end up? Not just on their energy bill, but financially, the whole picture.
Sure. If you don't mind, let me back up a little bit with context, right?
Okay.
This issue of energy insecurity and affordability is not a new thing. You know, I think the issue is that 10 years ago and 13 years ago, when, I started working with SELF on these issues, because my background is microfinance, so this is kind of second nature to me. But working on this issue here in the United States, there were conversations that were being had in silos about energy efficiency and whether it penciled out or not to finance it. And then resilience was really not a thing to talk about in terms of financing. And then there was clean energy or solar in a different silo. And and then there's health talked about in a different silo. And there's safety and hurricane or weather type, everything was talked about in silos.
Yes.
And, it was really interesting because when you talk about energy efficiency at a household level, I mean, it's just part of your budget. Energy is
Right.
part of your budget. So, nobody is thinking, well, am I going to invest in a new air conditioner now that mine is broken because it will pay off in 5 years or 7 years? Or am I going to change my roof because I think it's a good investment? No, that's not how
It's
it
like, I
works.
don't want rain to come out of my head.
Exactly. I don't want my roof to cave in. I don't want them to lose
Right.
my insurance because I don't have a new roof that is up to code. I don't
Mm,
want to lose my house in the next hurricane. And guess what? I need an air conditioner to be able to sleep, rest, thrive, do whatever it is at home and be healthy and not suffer from mold and asthma, right? So I just want to go back and say this
mhm.
issue of affordability related to energy is finally come together in one conversation and we talk about affordability and resilience, but it's always been it should have always been part of the conversation of
Yeah.
how do we help families um, gain access to better security, safety, health, and affordability to operate homes, right? So, in that context,
Mhm.
back in 2014, even though we're the Solar and Energy Loan Fund, a lot of people focus on the solar piece of it. We're really focused on energy efficiency and
Okay.
resilience because we knew that, especially being in Florida and then kind of looking at the Southeast as our next kind of, geography in which we were going to expand into, you just have to think about what do people need. You got to meet people where they're at. And we couldn't come and put
Mm,
solar on roofs that were, old and out of code. We couldn't put solar on a house that had jalousie windows and no air
right.
conditioning. We had to do the whole envelope, first seal the
Mhm.
home, reduce the energy burdens, and then go to solar. And all of that leads to why we are now kind of the leaders in this space of doing consumer or unsecured loans to address every part of the house that will increase affordability and reduce
Got it.
energy burdens and insurance burdens and increase safety.
Got it. So say someone is, but you just
Right.
started off saying that, wow, my AC broke, right? My window unit, I need to get a loan, right? We need to do that. Do you do this big intake before you actually get the loan going for the thing that they need right away,
Right.
right? It's a big complex
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
issue, right? So how
Well,
does that work?
it's as complex as you make it, right? So I want to go now and really address your question. Like, what does it look like, right? So in this context of you're living in a home, you're working class, working family, you're working really hard. You have two jobs, three jobs to make ends meet. And then your AC goes out
Right.
and your child has asthma or seizures. Okay, so I'm going to now
Mm,
talk about real clients without naming them, right?
okay.
And I'm going to use fake names, okay? So you have Carolyn, who's 80 years old, widowed, has had surgery on her back and is on fixed income, does not have any debt,
Mm,
never had credit because her husband died. Her husband had all the credit,
right,
and
right.
now her AC is out, and she is in 120 degrees in her home.
Mm,
And she goes out to get a loan to get an AC that is a high efficiency AC that they're going to, air conditioner that they're going to install. Because you can imagine she has a back brace. It's, and she's not going to
mm,
heal like that. So the
mhm.
banks and traditional lenders turn her down. So
Right.
she has to end
It
up
doesn't look good
with,
on paper.
she has no credit.
Yeah.
So then she has to go to maybe payday lenders. And those payday lenders are going to just completely annihilate her finances, right? Because she lives on within a very tight budget. So a
Okay.
friend of hers says, "Oh, I heard about Self." So they walk into the office one day, her and Carolyn and her friend, and she explains the situation. So we have a program, an alternative program with people with zero credit scores, and we
Mm.
crowd raise through Kiva.
Wow. All
Yeah.
right.
We crowd fund a loan through Kiva from global micro investors. And what we make sure of is if you have zero credit and you have done nothing wrong and you just have never really used credit, then you're going to get the lowest cost. Instead of zero credit and the highest cost, you get the lowest cost of our loans. You get the 5% 5 year. Why? One is because we have a program that we design to be able to withstand that risk, but also because we know that you need a chance to pay in a fair way and build your credit so then you can go and do more things, because that's our mission, right? That's the mission side of what we do.
Okay.
And we also think from a mission perspective and a commitment perspective, we believe in equity. Like if you don't have a credit score, but you can prove that you can repay a small loan, which is what we do, is we test ability to repay, then why would you pay 3 times as much as the person that has, a ton of extra money to repay a loan? Let them pay more or equal, but at least not less. You should pay less because that's giving you an opportunity to get up. So Carolyn now comes in, has zero credit score, and then she accesses a 5%. We approve a loan at 5%. I was there one day when I hear just wailing and crying. And I thought, what happened? I run out to the front door and it's her hugging our loan officer, crying tears
Oh,
of
goodness.
joy.
Right. Of joy.
She's like, giving hugs to the whole family, yes, our office and everybody that was there.
Wow.
So what
Right.
that looks like, aside from the emotional, beautiful moment, is that now she, in 3 days or in 2 days, had an air conditioner where she could recover. And also one that is high efficiency, so it doesn't impact her finances. And she's paying less than she was before with her window AC. So that's one example. And I want to mention one more, if that's okay.
Okay.
Resilience.
Yeah, I love this. This is like where the rubber meets the road. This is
Right.
real life, right?
Exactly. And by the way, she repaid her loan 100%. And then we have somebody else, and her name is Pam, and she's a real client, and she has allowed us to use her name, and she's provided testimonials. She's a U.S. veteran, single mom, raising 4 kids, also her sister's kids, and she had cancer. And so she's struggling between cancer and, can't work full time. Her house has 4 kids and the roof is just leaking, and she has buckets all over her house just catching the rain from, all the leaks. And she's really going to lose her whole roof. At any moment that roof is caving in, one side of her home. And
And roofs aren't small change, right? This is like
these are big
I've been there
investments.
before.
Yes, these are very big investments.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, a parentheses is that most Americans don't have more than $400 saved for emergencies. That's incredible, right?
Right.
I mean,
Right.
it's like 42% of Americans don't have savings and don't have access to fair credit. That's a lot of people. It's a lot of people that are working hard, right?
Right.
So you don't have $18,000-$20,000 stashed away for when your roof is leaking, right? And she's a veteran and she can't get a loan.
Mm.
She can't get a loan from anywhere. So again, this is a case where she came to us. We were able to help her replace her roof. Now, of course, when your roof is leaking like that, you're also going to lose your insurance. So now you don't have insurance. Now you're more vulnerable. Now the next hurricane season comes and you have no insurance if you had damage. So it's it just
Yeah.
stacks up. And just people are just like losing hope that they can ever own a home and keep up with it. Right. So Pam gets her roof fixed. After she gets her roof fixed, now she's safe. She can afford, now she can get her insurance. And then she changes her AC because her AC is not working. So now we did an AC. So to your
Okay.
question about, do we approach the home by first making an assessment? We don't. And I'll tell you why. We used to do audits all the time when we had DOE grant funds, which, we started with. But now we have a tool online. It's called Canopy Climate. And people can just go online and do their plan and say, I live in such place. This is my house. This is when it was built. And actually the tech tool will walk them through what it looks like to change your roof, to change your AC, to get an EV, how much you're going to spend, how much you're going to save. We have all that online for free. Anybody can go
Okay.
on.
So they
Yeah.
can really budget for this or look at it and see what the reality of their situation
Yeah.
is, right?
And they can even the system also will provide with what rebates are available.
Uh-huh.
And it's not always perfect in terms of rebates because those change all the time and there's no
Hmm.
central like location that we can use an API to tap into. So it's kind of yeah, but that's kind of a free tool where people can budget and do their plan. So again, you go back to somebody like Pam, and I mean, we can go in and do studies and make assessments all day long. But in the end of the day,
She needs an
what's
air conditioner or a roof.
right? She needs a roof. She needs an air
Yeah.
conditioner. So you have to pick and choose. What we chose is to address the issue and let others that
Mm.
specialize in auditing, in research, and so we partner with organizations that educate, that have a mission that is more either advocacy or all that, because we
Uh-huh.
recognize we can't do it all.
That's right. And they're building credit that they didn't have, right? Because you've given them a chance to build some credit, right? When
Financial
other,
inclusion is a big piece of what we do.
right.
Definitely.
So great. So, and you work in some of the most climate vulnerable communities, right, in the country. You talk the South, right? That ha hurricanes all
Yes.
the time have, and the oldest housing stock, the lowest average credit scores often we see, right? And this concentration of, low to moderate income. How does geography shape what credible affordability responses actually look like?
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, I think that every location is responding a little bit differently
Yeah.
to their climate vulnerability, to their energy and utility policies. I mean, it's complicated. And this is one of the reasons why when the industry of lenders talks about standardizing everything, I push back a little bit because we can standardize processes, procedures, and a certain level of financing. But because we're mission driven or we're reaching these non-traditional clients, we need to
Mm.
leave room to customize and to fill those gaps because otherwise we're going to leave a bunch of people out again. And
Right.
so this is an interesting question because the policy landscape is just not the same across the country. So
True.
and then the utility landscape, I mean, policy and then utility landscape is like totally different.
Yes.
Um,
Utility to utility too,
right.
right?
And then you
Okay.
have states that will have programs to help people that are lower income and et cetera. And then you have other states that have nothing. So
Mm.
what we do is we have 13 partners across the country now that use our lending platform, which overcomes the credit barriers and
Mm.
offers kind of like the way I describe it is a 4-lane highway. That highway has the standard, like the fast lane, right? The fast lane, you can drive your car fast because you are in good shape. So you have a good credit score, you have no issues, you can get a loan with us. But I always say, like, why are you coming to us? Go to a bank. Or, because we have limited resources. At the same time, they come to
Ah,
us
right.
because
Because
we
you're
do.
mission driven, right? You're there for a
So,
certain group of people.
right. But also, yes. But why do they come to us is interesting because we don't only give you a loan, we do all the project management. We give you a contractor vetted contractor list that we have vetted, that we have, made sure they're legitimate. And then when
Mm.
the person gets the loan, we check for price gouging. And then we make sure the project gets done and we pay the contractor. And you as a homeowner have to approve and be
Ah,
satisfied with the
right.
project. So a
So you're
lot of
not
work.
cutting a check and say,
Yeah.
good
No,
luck and please
go
pay
on
us
a
back. We're
cruise.
going to send you those coupons every month, right? So,
Yeah.
right?
So
You're
we're
holding their
doing
hand through the whole process. Sounds
Yes,
like it.
yes. And if you think about it, even if you are affluent and you have, if you're a single mom or you're an elderly person or just anybody, and you have to go and choose a roofer and know how much it should cost you,
Right.
then we provide all that consumer protection, which is huge, the consumer
Totally.
protection piece of it, right? So that's why some people with 800 credit scores, a lot of money come through us. And I'm just like, okay, we don't say no to you because thank you very much for choosing us. But what I'm saying is we have a lane for that. And that lane is fast and competitive and, probably less fast than banks, but we do it. And then we have the second lane, which is like if you're like on the fence with like you have good credit score, but not so good, you've had some issues, then we're able to look into your situation and look at your ability to repay. And we don't punish you for that because we're not going to charge you more because you went through something. So that's kind of the middle lane where you can go in and out of the fast lane, right? Or you can drop into a slow. And then we have a slow lane, which is like those people that have a less than good credit score, but not necessarily because they can't repay or they're not good payers. Maybe they went through a divorce, maybe they had cancer, maybe they had a situation, an emergency.
Mm.
Maybe they had a hiccup. But actually, they have the source of repayment, they want to prove themselves and they want to rebuild their credit. And so we take that deeper dive, and our underwriting allows us to go deeper and again, not punish them for that, but actually give them the same rate or a lesser rate. And then we have what I call the scooter lane, right? And that's like you're going slow, you're going, you don't, yeah, you're going, and that's the key, really the Kiva lane in the sense that it takes 30 days to raise funds. It's a very kind of
Okay.
protected small lane, and, it takes a lot more work for us. But there is that lane. So now you have a highway with 4 lanes where everybody
Hmm.
can participate and not get left out.
Is this
It's,
your model? Is this like
yeah.
really proprietary to self, right? Because yeah,
I
I mean,
mean,
it could
we're
be a,
not inventing hydrogen fuel or whatever, right? It is. So, yes, we have a proprietary underwriting. It's not rocket science, but this is what we've been doing for 13 years, which is kind
yeah,
of understanding how to serve each segment. And, we've deployed what, $60 million, dollars, and we have less than 2% default rate, and 70% of our clients are low and moderate income.
right.
So, we're doing it right because the thing is that it's if you can repay a loan, that's what
Hmm.
we're gauging. Now, a lot of people can't repay a loan, and that's not who we can serve. They need assistance, they need grants, and we're a lender.
Yeah. So it's really remarkable because you said that the people that you do lend to, right, carry a under 2% default rate, and
Hmm.
70% of them are low to moderate, right? What does that prove about the assumptions
Yeah,
we make,
yeah,
we bake into the
yeah,
conventional way of our financial system?
yeah. Well, it proves that the system um, is wrong. It's wrong about people.
Mm,
It proves that the system has mislabeled a bunch of people and left them out. And this is something that
mm.
I'm very personally passionate about. I came back to this country 13 years ago after, being out, 20 years plus, and I had to start from scratch, and I didn't have credit. And had my mom and my stepdad
Okay.
not lived here, I couldn't have rented a home or bought a car, even though I had my savings in a bank. It didn't matter, you know. And honestly, I'll tell you a funny story, and not to, give any like special promotional call out to anybody, but the after like a year of like settling back in, the ones that gave me my first credit card was Best Buy because I was buying a bunch of equipment for my business. And they wanted to sell me so bad. They tried
Right.
to approve me for a credit card. But as I lived through that, and I remember thinking to myself, coming from micro lending and my background and like always serving this market, which is left out, um, I thought to
Yeah.
myself, wow, I didn't realize how bad it was here in the United States as well for people to access fair credit, you know? And it was like, why in such a wealthy
Mm.
country are people still disproportionately affected by lack of access to capital? And how does this impact affordability in terms of like their household. I mean, right now we're going to see an increase of 7.1% average across the board, for low and moderate income people in their energy bills. They're
Yeah.
already paying up to three times as much as a wealthy person, um, leading up to 20 to 30% of their income going towards energy only. And then combine rent, 50%, and then combine if they need insurance. I mean, how do you get ahead? How do you move forward?
Well, this is the problem that happens over and over again. They just get caught up in that system and deeper and deeper and deeper. I really wish that this model or parts of the model could be like transplanted baked into the utility, right?
Yeah, yes, we wish that there would be, that people would care more about these things. I mean, that's just, because here's the thing, if you're profit driven, you're driven by profit. So you got to look where the profit is.
Right.
And that is what, and that's where it's so important to have nonprofits in this space because as a CDFI we're nonprofit mission driven and we're filling those gaps that traditional lenders that are driven by profit leave out. That doesn't mean that I don't believe in for-profit entities. No, they're needed, they're great. I love business and I love successful business and we have to operate as a business,
Yeah.
but
But
we
here's the
need
thing
to.
about this, though. These utilities that I get what you said, I totally get. But there's the investor-owned utility that is a monopoly. Everybody's their customer, no matter what. That's got to be part of the privilege, frankly, to have that kind of market share.
Yes, I
Not to
agree
say
with
that they don't do things, they do, but what you're doing is you're really working with them, not coming from this is my program that we're going to lay on you, instead of like, what is really needed here, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but that's because we're mission driven. And
Yeah.
that's because that's what I signed up to do. Otherwise, I always say like this is the hard work. And
Mm,
this is the irony, right? The nonprofits with less funding do the hardest work.
yeah.
And everybody has a higher standard for us. Auditing this and that. And I'm fine with that. But truth is that this is why, losing federal funding for these issues is such a huge um negative impact
Yeah.
because I mean, we're doing the hard work that others can't do because of their, mandates. And that hard work is so important because you're helping people um, thrive otherwise to work. Like
Yeah.
if somebody can't have a home that's safe where they can rest, where they can have health, then how do they go out and work effectively, right? And again, there's everybody has a role to play. And it would be
Mm,
easy, I could be working at a bank and you could be doing something else, but we make these choices because that's what drives us and that's what we want to do. And I feel like there's like what we're doing is filling a gap and a need. And sometimes it
yeah.
feels like a frustrating and ungrateful job just because it's so hard.
That's
And,
right.
but at the same time, somebody's got to do it, and that's what we're set up to do. So,
I am so happy you are on this planet and doing what you're doing. And the central question you've answered it in many different ways already, but I'm going to just pinpoint this question is that from your perspective, from Self's perspective, what does a credible response to energy affordability in this moment that we're in right now look like from your perspective?
hmm, well, that's a big question. um, so there is no silver bullet,
Mm,
right? There's no one solution that will take care of everything.
that
Again,
is so true.
location matters, right? Where you are in this country, climate, what your challenges are matters. So I think that in a kind of kind of general context, I would say you need to have policy that understands what's happening on the ground
That's right.
and is not only understanding and sitting up here saying, "Oh, okay, well, we have an issue with these old homes that will get." damaged in the next hurricane, and then we're going to have to use FEMA funds to rebuild, and it's super expensive, and it's a problem, and we have people out of
Yeah.
and so I'm a policymaker, so I know what I'm going to do. We're going to enforce new codes. Everybody has to change their roofs and get a
Right.
right? You already know where I'm going, right? And it's like, okay, great. But then people are like, well, how am I going to afford this? So, for me, it's about collaboration and connection amongst all the
Mhm.
kind of chain of all the parts that make up or they're part of affordability. In other words, if you're going to build new homes and the builders, developers are making money, all of them are, then you should impose a higher standard to begin with so that home is affordable to operate. So green building standard should be a standard across the board. Why not?
Right.
Why
Right.
not? Oh, because it makes it a little more expensive. That's not true anymore. That's not even true because you can design around sustainability and around affordability. It's
Mm.
a change. Nobody likes to change the way you're doing things.
Right.
So
That is so true, what you just said, because it's working pretty darn good over here. Let's not rock the boat here,
and
right?
it's still seen like, oh, you're a green builder, you're like something special. Recently, somebody I was talking to and called me self, but he was saying, "Aren't you part of like this exclusive club?" And I'm like, "What? What club?" I'm like,
Wow,
"We're an
interesting.
industry of over 2,000 CDFIs and over 50 green banks. We're an industry." And so I'm just saying that there's this perception that it's something different and it's something expensive. You say green lending, and a lot of people think, oh, you're financing this really expensive luxury, like,
Mm.
wooden stuff that you're recapturing. I mean, things like that. So I think there's still a lot of work to do in terms of defining what affordability is and how we need to address it from the bottom up. And that is from a building standard, from a conservation or even upgrades, what they call NOAA homes,
Okay.
naturally occurring affordable homes, meaning old homes. How should we upgrade them? And then hopefully local governments, for the lack of federal government policies now, but local governments should care because ultimately, when people suffer losses of homes and all that, it impacts local governments and local communities. So they should care about having funding partners and funding sources to
Mhm.
fill these gaps. So ideally, all local governments should be working with CDFIs that are providing capital to do these upgrades and making upgrades that are energy efficient, resilience, water conservation should not be something strange that is like tagged to climate. It's just logical, good home improvements,
Right.
right? So I think that policy plus access to capital plus an awareness of what needs to be done, um, and having the right actors and partnerships, public, private, and philanthropic partnerships, plus private capital, all of that is
Yeah.
the only way we solve for this issue.
Yeah. You just described an ecosphere, right?
An
I
ecosystem
love
for sure.
that. I love that because it's all integrated, right?
Yes.
And you're doing an amazing job because you have 13 partners right now from
Yeah.
Nevada to the Carolinas, I hear, right?
Yes.
The
Yes.
question I
Well,
have with this is that, I mean, you have such an incredible model, right? What was your thinking behind making, self really the engine, the Intel engine, right? Other than here's our brand and this is the way we do it, right?
yeah, thank you. Yeah, we decided we were going to do a white label. In other words, just we
Yeah.
describe it for the engine and the facilitator for capital deployment. And we're going to avoid people having to go through 10 years of learning like we did to do this in the right way. So
Mm,
this was
got it.
it when we were anticipating greenhouse gas reduction funds, and we knew that we were going to have the opportunity to invest heavily in like setting up and building up the ecosystem. So we launched the Climate Equity Accelerator, and that was kindly funded by a big grant of philanthropy by JP Morgan Chase, who has been a huge supporter of these initiatives
All
in their
right.
global philanthropy arm. And we said, you know what we want to do is we want to make sure that these nascent green banks that are popping up and these CDFIs that are starting to do climate lending, which again, it's just like logical lending, but it's also consumer lending, which the industry wasn't really doing and is not really doing. They're usually doing business loans or affordable housing. So consumer lending is always like, oh, it's too risky. Yeah, it is, right? So we thought, why don't we help just deploy all this capital that's going to start flowing? And we don't,
Mm.
listen, we're mission driven. What do we want? We want capital to reach
You've
community.
said that a lot. And this,
Right.
all your answers are coming from that basis,
Right.
right? That's
Right.
why we're
Because it's
doing
not
it. We
about
want to help
us.
as many people as we can,
Exactly. It's not about
right?
us. And
Yeah.
and honestly, the Climate Equity Accelerator was always like, how do we build the ecosystem? Because
Mm.
in the end of the day, we were the only green CDFI and green bank in the Southeast for the longest time. Right? The only ones doing this type of lending. So now we saw the opportunity where new green banks were going to pop up. And then how do they, like, we know what it takes to have the infrastructure to
Ah,
lend, to deploy capital. And we said, you know what, let's just do a plug and play. Plug into our back office. We'll save you a bunch of money and a bunch of like knowledge, right? And we'll give you our proven model. And in fact, we'll raise grants so you don't have to pay for it for the first couple of years for the
okay.
licensing. We'll do a licensing and then you can deploy your capital or ours. Initially, it was ours. And then we'll just figure this out. So that's the genesis
Oh,
of
wow.
our 13, what we call plug and play partners. And it's been wonderful. I mean, they've deployed, the first three have deployed about $6 million so far. Same, like less than 1% default rate so far in
Right.
delinquency.
Wow.
And they're in the Carolinas, Georgia, Carolinas, Georgia, more recent, but Texas and Nevada. And then we have the other, 10 that are slowly deploying capital. And, it's honestly, it really is purpose and mission that we're fulfilling. And it's also challenging because in the end of the day, this is not we don't charge high fees. We're trying to build them up like we are. I think that the question coming up in the next couple of months and years is going to be how much of this that was like initiated and seeded with what were going to be federal funds that have been
Yeah. Yeah.
frozen, how much of this will survive?
Yeah.
I always say
Great question.
we, we will survive because we were here before greenhouse gas reduction fund and we will be here
Ah,
after. And we have survived in a policy landscape that we've gotten zero funding from the state,
hmm.
zero support. So our model works. But how many others that are new that relied on funding to get up on their feet and become sustainable will survive?
Right.
And that's the biggest challenge. So I think that we should be focused on ensuring that CDFIs and green banks have funding, whether from philanthropy or, private
Mm.
impact investors at a low cost so they can survive because them surviving means economic development, period.
Right. Wow. Um, this brings me to our closing question. Like 10 years from now, Duan, right? Self becomes a model, a standard rather than an exception. Like, what would it look like? What would energy affordability look like in this country 10 years from now?
It's interesting. We're already heading in the direction of access to better capital for affordability. I mean, in the end of the day, affordability being again touching on all the elements that
Yes.
make that are part of affordability. Home upgrades that will reduce energy burdens, that will increase safety, health, etc. Right?
Mhm.
Um, in 10 years, I suspect that this is going to be standard like lending offered by not
Okay.
only CDFIs, but by banks.
Yeah.
And I already see that tendency, and largely because
Okay.
I'm a big tech fan as well. So a lot of this is because of our investments in technology and what I really started before COVID, building out our digital systems, our platforms. And I think with technology now and AI and all this power, even banks now are starting to talk about, oh, I just saw an advertisement recently said, "Oh, it doesn't matter your credit score," and I thought, "My, they finally caught on." They finally caught the big guys finally caught on with that. So I'm sorry, but I mean, the reason is because it's expensive to do lending in this space, like I described, right, where you have to go deep. But with technology, you're able to do that more and more and better,
Okay.
reducing the risk. So
So
it's
you're
almost
seeing
like
as AI
saying
being a partner in this as well, a good partner, or tech, the tech.
it's tech, and
Yeah.
we're already
Yeah.
you know, working on integrating ethical use of AI in
Okay.
our, yeah, we're already there. I
Maybe
mean,
that's
it's
another show for another
yeah,
time because
totally.
we
I'd love
talk
to
about
talk
AI
about
a lot,
yeah,
right?
but
Yeah.
here's the thing, what does it look like? I mean, it's almost like it has to become just one more product that's out there and accessible
Yeah.
because it's in demand, because it's proven to be a good market. And plus, with technology and AI and all these tools, everybody's going to be able to access more information to serve people more. That may be
Mm,
my hope, but it's also kind of because I know that this segment of the market has been ignored for too long, and they're really good, worthy credit holders. So, you know, yeah, I don't know. I don't, at that point, self will be probably doing something new to break down some other.
I love it. Right. That barrier broke down. Let's go on to the
Yeah,
next.
exactly. What's next? Give me the next problem.
Wow. How can people learn about self? Where do they go? How do they connect with you if they want to?
Yeah, thank you. Well,
All
www.solerenergyloanfund.org.
right. Right on.
Social media, look us up. If you do self or solar energy loan fund, you'll find us. My team is great at posting stuff all over social media. And if they want to contact me, well, look me up on LinkedIn, Duanne Andrade, and or self, and you can find us. And please reach out if you have any questions or if we can, help in any way. We work with not only homeowners, but businesses as well, nonprofits. So we have our commercial lending arm as well. And yeah, thank you. I mean, it's just fun to have this conversation with you, and I appreciate you.
Yeah. Thank you. It was really fun and enlightening to have this conversation, knowing that you kept on coming back to mission, right? I mean, there's so many different ways to do this, right? But mission is your ground. It's where you are rooted. And then it comes from that. So that makes all the difference in the world here, right? And you've created a system, a financial system that works because of it. And others are spreading the love, getting it out there in other ways, right? Through other green banks, right? So when I started this series, right, it was about asking what do credible responses to energy affordability actually look like? Well, Duanne not only answered that question, but proved when you design a financial system around people instead of just profit, it works.
Yeah.
It's financially viable for them as an entity and for the people that they're helping.
Yeah.
So if you want to see more of that on Just Power, please subscribe. Please. I love that you're listening. I so love it. Let your friends know. But I want you to subscribe today because that helps us grow and helps us bring more Duannes on our show and others that are doing amazing work in this space. So thank you, Duanne, for showing up and gracing us with all that you're doing with self. And thank you for showing up and tuning in today because you, me, Duanne, and everyone else listening here is about making this energy transition work, right? Because we are all in this together. Thank you for joining us. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you subscribe to Just Power wherever you get your podcasts. And if you really loved it, leave us a review and tell everyone you know about our podcast. It's going to take all of us to create a clean energy future that leaves no one behind.